everyone, and welcome back to Full Recovery. Today I have as my guest Mrs. Priscilla Duff, and we're going to talk about something that Priscilla knows an awful lot about because she has done this area of her expertise repeatedly and has been a great help to many people. But before we get into that, what we're going to talk about today, I just want to know a little bit about your family. Now, I know your family personally, but for anybody that doesn't know, would you just talk a minute about your husband, what he does, your children, where they are in life, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. My name is Priscilla Duff. I was formerly Priscilla Vogel. My parents moved to Indiana when I was 3 months old. I grew up at First Baptist Church. My husband grew up at First Baptist Church, and I've known him literally all my life. Like, I don't remember not knowing him, but I do remember the first time I noticed him. He was in 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
And we had our first date at youth conference when I was going into 7th grade.
Oh my goodness, I don't think I knew that.
He asked me to sit by him at youth conference. So I'm going into 7th grade and he's going into 8th grade. And we had our first date. And then we kind of liked each other on and off, through junior high, junior hires do. And then we officially started dating. I was a junior in high school. He was a senior in high school.
Okay.
Dated for 4 years. After 2 years of college, we got married. Graduated together, moved to Ohio, Akron, Ohio. And he was assistant pastor there at Rick Fox's church for about 5 years. Had 2 kids in Ohio, Megan and Jacob. And then through a very long story, which you don't have time for, very interesting long story, we ended up back here in Indiana. And my husband's assistant pastor at the church now, and we've been here since '01 and had another son here, Michael. So we have Megan, who's 23, Jacob's 21. I can't remember. I just had their birthdays. And Michael is 18. So Megan's married, and her husband teaches at City Baptist. He's a division leader, Johnny Francis. And Jacob's a senior in college, dating Amanda.
Yes,
we love. And Michael just started freshman year of college, so he's excited and ready. So we're all going on to the next phase of life.
Oh, it's scary. It's exciting. It's scary. It's
all
like,
of the above.
Yeah. But it's great.
It's good. It's an adjustment, but it's good.
Yeah, it's a good adjustment. So, in your job at First Baptist Church, you are the wedding coordinator, and now you've had the chance to not only do your wedding, of course, which was lovely. I've seen pictures. I wasn't there, but it was beautiful in pictures. And of course, helping your daughter plan her wedding.
Right.
And now many others are you're the one that they are meeting with and talking with and planning with and helping them. So especially during these last few months, COVID-19 has really thrown any life event really for a loop, but especially those planning weddings. My heart has just gone out to them because our son got married at the very beginning of all of this.
Right.
And so their wedding wasn't affected, but we were planning a reception for them back in where we live in the ending of February, beginning of March, but we just had to totally scrap it. We just couldn't do it because of restrictions from COVID. So I'm sure that has been a very trying time, and here, especially for the young brides, women, and their grooms they just want to get married.
Right, that's all they do. They want to
get married.
That's all they care about.
But at some point, we don't know about, how normal things are going to get, but things will resume. Plans are being made, people will always still be getting married. So I covered a little bit maybe of your job description, but what do you entail, like start to finish? A bride meets with you, and how does that go?
Well, I just took this job over this last summer. We've had Mrs. Colston here at the church forever, and then Becky Town took it, and she's done a great job. And we heard she was moving, and my husband came home and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about taking that job?" And I said, "No, not for any reason, just because it was a lot of work."
It's a lot of work.
And then just over the next week or so, just thinking about it, then I got a call from the church, and they said, would you consider taking this? So I prayed about it and talked about it, and I've always loved weddings. I had so much fun doing my daughter's wedding. I thought this would be so much fun to do, to help brides get married. It was a lot of fun. I worked at a bridal shop in college, so I got to be around the dresses, and I just, everything about a wedding. I mean, from the time I was a little girl, I've always just loved every aspect of wedding. Now, doing an aspect of a wedding from this position is different than just being the little girl dreaming of your wedding. So you see all the details, and the way I went through my planning of my wedding is still so similar to what the girls feel now. They get so excited, they're engaged, we finally get to start planning it, depending on how long your engagement is. Depends on how much time you have to do different things like that. But they finally get to a point where they don't care about anything, they just want to get married, and they're done making decisions. And that's where it's beneficial for them to have people around them that can step in and say, it's okay, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it. You like this or this, you want to go with option A or B. And so as long as you have those people around you, when that bride gets to that point where she's done, she just wants to get married, as long as you have somebody there to step in, it's such a help to her, because otherwise it would be kind of interesting what these weddings ended up looking like at the very end. So my job is, when they get engaged, they go to the church and they get their date set. Once they get their date set, they call me, and we sit down, we have about an hour and a half, 2-hour meeting, and we talk about everything about their wedding. I give them information from getting your license, how soon to get your license, where to go to get your wedding license, how long your license is good for. You might not realize it expires, and every state is different, so you have to know what your state laws are. From the wedding license to who's in your wedding, to what kind of music you want, where you want your music in the actual ceremony, because you plan out your ceremony. And each bride has their own taste and they want something different. It's pretty much every ceremony is the same, but everyone adds their own unique touches to it. So maybe, the bridesmaids walk in a certain way, or they want to honor somebody at their ceremony, different events like that. So we work through all of that, and it's always funny because when I sit down, which again, I have only been doing it this year, but when I sit down with a bride, they're so excited, and then by the end, they're just like, okay, wait, this is a lot. Can I take pictures of all those pages I have to know all this information for? And I'm like, sure, and I'm here, phone call away, anything, questions, things like that. That we can work through, but there's just a lot. So when I always say, get some kind of a planner, whether it's a day planner, a wedding planner, something that you print off of Pinterest, things like that, Pinterest board where you have an idea of what you're looking for, as you start to plan your wedding. Otherwise, it could get so overwhelming that you just shut down and you don't know what to do.
When everything so much now is digital everything. When I was young, it was paper and pen, everything, hard copies. And so I'm kind of still that way. I tend to just want, I have my planner, and I think it helps to see it, in black and white, but at least have access to something, even if you are a digital person, having it on your phone or on your laptop, Pinterest boards, like you said, just to see everything. We all think we can leave things up here and we're not going to forget it. We won't, but it doesn't matter if you're young, you're going to forget that amount of information. So it's best to write it down. So first thing to do is a planner, and we're actually going to show your planner. In fact, you can hold it up here. This is just so beautiful, I think. I was looking at these a moment ago. Priscilla was showing me, and we're going to actually flip through those so she can show you some things in there. And that was what she used as a
years ago.
Yeah, not that long ago. Just yesterday. But we'll have a chance to peruse those now, and you can take a look and see what that looks like.
Yes. So when I bought these, I was so excited, and this was my wedding journal, and I wrote how we met, information like that, that if I did not write this down, I don't know if I remember all the little details. When we knew we would marry, setting the date, and some of these are supposed to have pictures. I have this one picture. This is the one picture I have of the night we got engaged. And I knew I had a picture somewhere, but I wasn't sure where it was, so I'm glad I found it. But when you work through these wedding planners, this is me and my husband. I don't know if you can see that very well, but when we got married, when you work through these wedding planners and they, you have guest lists, for example. This is our guest list, and that is obviously not filled out because I didn't use this part to write down who I was inviting. But there's so many details that I bought my daughter a wedding planner. I went on Amazon, picked the one that was the highest rated, and when we got it and we opened it up, I was surprised how much information was in there that I never would have even thought of. It helps you set up a budget, how much you want to spend on different things like flowers, and making your list priority. What is number one in a wedding? A lot of times brides think, as long as I get married and have everybody around, it doesn't matter what happens. But if you think about, okay, I have a budget, I have a certain amount I want to spend on a wedding, where am I going to put that money? Is it into food? Is it into decorations? Is it into the venue? And I always tell the brides, whatever you want to do, but to me the best investment is to get a good photographer. Because really at the end of the day, what you have left is your pictures.
You're going to want great pictures.
You're going to want great pictures.
Which I don't have. I mean, they're okay, but...
Yeah, right. So a photographer, things like that you want to make sure that you have a planner, and that will help you say, okay, I've got this much money, photographer costs this much, now I have this much to spend on flowers or things like that. So you definitely want to organize that, and if someone is not a natural organizer, so they're not going to sit down and just take charge and they're going to figure it all out.
Right.
Call somebody, ask somebody in your church, a family member, something like that maybe has already been through it. Even someone older and younger, someone that's, like I've been married a while, I might not know all the details that today's bride would want. I'd say, well, back in my day, we didn't even do that, and now it's a big deal. So it's good to have those type of advice in your life, and someone to help you in all the different areas, because something I think is beautiful might not be beautiful to that bride.
And also, if you are in a church and you don't have, it doesn't have to be a paid position. Somebody could just really take this upon themselves to say, I'm going to be available to help brides. I enjoy doing this. I am an organized person. I do have a vision. I am creative, or whatever it is, but it is helpful for people in churches to contribute their time and be a help to somebody.
And most churches will have somebody, like you said, if they're not paid, they're at least wanting to help out. My sister that lives in Iowa, she will help any bride, and she doesn't take any money for it. She just loves to get in there and help her figure it out, and it's fun for her and helpful, and so if they know anybody like that, like I said, a family member, if the mom is not available, or maybe the mom doesn't want that position, she just wants to be the mom, whatever it is, definitely get help and get somebody that has a clear head, that can think things through, because tensions run high at weddings.
It's true.
Emotions, I should say. Everybody's very emotional. Another thing I've learned, I know I was emotional when I got married, when my daughter got married, but you're dealing with a lot of emotions when you're dealing with a bridal party. You not only have the bride and the groom, you've got the groomsmen and the bridesmaids, and you've got family, and you've got grandma and grandpa, and you've just got a lot of different people, and to have somebody that is, on the outside looking in, that can
stabilizer.
They can come in there and keep things calm, and okay, we'll take care of it, and don't worry about it, and keep everybody
in check. I think that's a great suggestion. So we mentioned that the first thing every bride should get is a planner, something to help her, assist her, but obviously the next big purchase is her dress. The dress. Everybody wants to see the dress. And of course everybody has a different, philosophy of what that is. And when I was getting married, puff sleeves were everything. And it's so funny how they're back. I'm like, yes!
Puff sleeves. Oh yeah.
And I had to have a point down on my hand.
Yes. I had
Why? I don't know.
Yes.
But I had to have the point, you know.
And the high.
Yes, high neck. Oh my goodness.
The day after I got married, I had a red mark
Oh.
on my neck.
It's a badge of honor. Oh. But styles change, you know. But I've seen a lot of wedding dresses now with puff sleeves again. It's so funny how things come and go. In fact, I don't know if you've noticed so far into this, but we have Princess Diana here on the Slowly Plate.
Puff sleeves.
Really, I mean, the most beautiful dress. I mean, even if you're not about all that fantastic fabric anymore, you know, you're more streamlined, nothing compares with that dress. Just the train.
And I should know, I studied it, every detail of the dress, so many years.
It was beautiful. She was beautiful. She really was. But the dress is important. So when a bride comes to you and you're helping her plan, what are some things that you tell her about the dress? What are some important guidelines or keys to look for? Anything helpful in deciding which dress to help her say yes to the dress?
Yes, yes to the dress. One thing is to make it the dress that she wants and she feels good in and she feels beautiful in, not just what everybody else around her is saying. Sometimes the girls will say, I don't know, what do you think, and you get enough people saying, oh, I love it, and so she buys it based off of that, but she always has something inside of her that thinks, oh, I don't know, and she doesn't feel gorgeous and beautiful on her one day that she, you know, should feel the best.
Right.
So, you know, as much as we say the wedding is all about you, but it's not about you, the dress really reflects who you are and your taste and your style. And so you want to feel good in it, and you want it to fit your body type too. Where it accents, you know, if your waist is the smallest part of you, have it accent that. Don't just get something that's in style because it's in style, but it really doesn't look good on you.
Right.
Because you see somebody else in it, and you think, oh, that's how I'm going to look. But you don't always look that way. But again, you know, dresses can go from a couple $100s up to thousands of dollars. So you need to prioritize how much do you want to spend on the dress, and remember, it is just one day and you're going to wear it one time.
Right.
So, you know, if you have the money and it's not an option, you know, you can get whatever you want. But a lot of times girls are going in there trying to find the dress that will work with their budget, that will work with their standards, that will work with their church and make mom happy, everybody happy. So it can be kind of, you know, a pressure situation. Right. But what I tell our girls at our church, you know, we have certain standards that the dresses have to go by. And so I tell them, you know, look for a dress that has a base, something that you can build off of, and it doesn't look like you've added things to it. It
was contrived.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, you want it, a dress, when I tell the bridesmen and the bridesmaids, when the bride walks in, they should see you as this beautiful bride, not as you walk in, they're looking at certain parts of you, noticing those things. They should see you as a beautiful woman, you know, just like Christ and the bride and the church. You sees you as a person, as this beautiful woman, not, I see so many people, you know, in the world, and it's all about their body.
Right.
They walk down the aisle.
Right.
And that's not what it's about. And I don't think a lot of Christian girls do that, but there is that temptation to look your best, so you're going to accentuate certain areas that shouldn't be done. But it's modesty is beautiful. Right. It's elegant. I think you should be classy. I love sparkle. I love lace. I love, you know, whatever your taste is great. And we have we've had 16 weddings this year since January. Wow. 16 different brides, 16 different dresses, and they all are gorgeous. And everybody has different tastes, different body types, different heights. But they're all uniquely them. And so maybe it wasn't my taste or her taste, but on her, she's glowing and she looks beautiful. But it's important that you know how much you want to spend, what looks good on you, and what if you have to make some type of adjustments to fill in or add maybe a little bit of a sleeve, whatever your church standard is, that you can do that without it looking like you did it.
Right.
Because that is
Right.
key. You don't want, with my daughter, she had it all lace and then the lining was lower, so we had to fill it up here. And I did not want, when she walked down the aisle, everybody going, that looks a little off.
Yeah,
Or I could see the line where
Right.
they tacked that in.
Right.
I wanted it to just all be, solid and it looked like it came that way. So we were able to find a dress like that. And, we prayed about it a lot, and I believe God gave her the right dress. But it's really important that they, number one, they feel beautiful in it. They always say you'll know when you try it on.
Right.
But sometimes pressure from friends or family can, if I had asked people about my dress, I would probably have a different opinion from everybody that saw it, because it might not be their dress or their style or whatever. So you have to feel good in it. You want it to fit your standard of modesty. At the same time, you can add things to it.
Right.
And then the number one important thing that I would say to brides, if I could take every single bride and say, please do this, is to hem their dress.
Yes. Yeah.
Hem your dress. Pay the money. Whatever you have to do, hem your dress. I see too many girls walking down the aisle and they're either kicking their dress out as they go, or they're stepping on it and tripping on it.
Right.
And it's worth every penny to have it hemmed, even if grandma does it.
Right. Yeah, I've seen a few where you just, yes, it's an expense, but to look perfect and elegant on your day and not have to be worried or or like you said, kicking it out of the way, it is so much better to just have it done.
Yeah. And the bridesmaids too. And I know the girls, they say, well, I'm just going to wear it to this one wedding. I'm not going to, it's still worth the $20 or whatever you have to pay. Find somebody that will, beg and plead, please hem my dress.
Right.
But to get it hemmed, it just makes the day so much easier for you, because you're not tripping and stepping and ripping and getting it dirty. And then you just flow down the aisle instead of stumble down the aisle.
Right. Even where we live, most dry cleaners will have an in-house tailor.
Sure.
And it's very easy to get something done there. It's always worth it. That's a good rule of thought for regular clothing too.
Yes.
Just take a minute and have it tailored. It's so worth it.
Yes.
So for bridesmaids and the bride, of course, what are some of those specific guidelines that you give them as far as fabric or modesty issues, things like that? What do you give to them?
I always tell the bride, try to tell the bridesmaids at rehearsal. We have rehearsal the day before the wedding, and then I'll tell them all, no matter what length dress, what color dress, all of these fancier dresses, the organza, they might have 3 layers, but they all show everything.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're wearing a 14 or if you're wearing a 4. I see the same issue on every size. So it's not like,
and not every bridesmaid is Pippa Middleton.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and even the Pippa Middleton ones, we still say you need to wear something.
Right.
So I always tell them to make sure they have some kind of support underneath. They're wearing some type of shorts, some type of a Spanx, so that when they walk down the aisle, nobody's following them, watching them jiggle down the aisle. I have sat there too many times and watched it, and the thing is, I know the girls that it's happening to, they don't want that either, but they're just not aware.
They just don't know.
And so I'll tell them, I say, you might stand and look in the mirror behind you and you think, oh, it looks good. But it's not the standing, it's the walking. So you need to walk away, and as you walk and you see behind you, you'll be like, oh.
Yikes.
I was at a wedding this summer, and it was a smaller girl, and she had like a blush pink dress on. And you could see where her tank top was, where her shorts were, where everything was. And it was just like, oh, you wanted to say no, because I know
didn't have to happen.
Yeah, I know she didn't want it. But to make sure you eliminate lines, because that's just, I tell, it's not a Baptist thing. It's not a, we're strict, and it's a classy thing.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
I tell them the people on TV lines is like a major fashion faux pas.
Mm-hmm.
Royals, they all are strict and are taught about that. You do not have these situations that where
Right.
you're walking around and you've got tight clothes or you've got jiggling down the aisle. But it's not just that, and it's when you walk up the stairs, how to pick up your dress, when you walk up the steps for a platform, how do you keep your back straight. And so when you walk up, your back is straight and you're walking with your legs instead of sticking your backside out.
Right.
And moving that up the stairs. And it's just, all of it is just, you know, how do you want people to view you?
Mm-hmm.
How do you carry yourself? You know, most people aren't walking down the aisle being, I hope everybody here is checking me out.
Right.
But in unfortunate situations, sometimes they are, not because it's a good thing, but it's just because of fashion faux pas and mistakes that are made.
Right.
And these type of clothing, you have to be extra careful because they'll show everything.
Right.
Even if you think, oh, it's a little bit full, as you walk, you know, or as you go up the stairs. So we practice. I teach them how to pick up their dress one size and not bending over and doing it. How to walk up the stairs with their back straight, their legs, using their legs instead of their back. You know, going over the guidelines for not embarrassing yourself with your clothing, but it's just really being a conscious of that and making sure, you know, from all angles. And asking someone, hey, look at me. How do I look? Do you see anything when I'm moving around?
You don't want to be
like
the
that.
bad memory at a wedding.
No.
You don't want to be somebody's, you know, that they talk about and laugh about later at parties forever and ever.
No. And then sometimes they'll have a dress where, you know, it's like a sheer dress and the lining stops at the knee. And then some girls will wear a longer slip and some girls won't. And then you have this line of pictures.
Yeah.
And you've got a different variety, and it's just, you know, you don't have to spend a lot of money to be classy. You can get a cheap dress off of Amazon for $25, but not
That's what you do with it.
It's what you do with it. It's your thinking of not just I have to be strict and I have to be. It's just I want to be appropriate and classy. And I want people to notice me as a person, not as a thing or an object.
Right.
Because
have you ever had bridesmaids just say, I don't like that dress and I'm not going to wear it? Has it ever come to an issue like that? Maybe you don't face that so much here. Where I'm from, it's kind of common for a bridesmaid to say, I'm just not going to wear that.
There have been things like that with the bride before, and the bride's like, what do I do? You know, a lot of times people will say, well, then, you know, pick out something that you want to wear as long as it's the same color.
Yeah.
You know, but I've had to tell people, and other people have had to tell people, I'm sorry, but that's not appropriate. That won't pass. You need to find a different dress, you know, things like that. But if you handle it the right way, you can save a lot of hurt feelings.
Right.
And I think if a bridesmaid said, I'm not wearing that, that is ugly or whatever, and you don't know how to handle it, I think that's when you go to whoever's helping you plan your wedding and say, help me.
Yeah.
And maybe that person goes to them and says, you know, look, this isn't about you. This is about her. This is what she picked out.
And this is her choice.
This is
so
her choice.
Go along.
So you need to be a good girl and wear it.
Right. All right, so we're going to move into timetables and scheduling of planning and things. But before we get into that, what are some common mistakes that brides make when planning their weddings? Brides, people helping them, whatever. What are some common mistakes that are made during that time?
Common mistakes is, number one, would be not having somebody there to help you. If you are doing it all on your own, you are going to forget a lot of things until the very last moment when someone says, oh, did you order your cake? Oh, did you get invitations? Oh, did you get a program? Oh, what about the flowers? Or where are you getting this and that from? And you think, oh, I didn't even think about that. So having a second pair of eyes, somebody there that can help you, you know, remember these certain things. Another common mistake is, it's very important when you are budgeting your wedding, is to make sure you have a certain amount of money, a couple $100s, whatever that amount that you know could have, set aside for surprises.
Okay.
Because there's always a surprise that you weren't planning on.
Like a house renovation, there's always going to be something that you haven't thought of.
Exactly. You know, whether it's I didn't know I had to pay $75 to have my wedding cake delivered, or something that happens last minute that you forgot, or something like that. So to have a certain set of money set aside that if something major happens or something small, whatever it is, you have that money and you're not panicked and you're not, what do I do now? But that's a piece of advice that I like to give all the brides, especially. Another piece of advice is not to overreact to situations. And I'll tell a funny story about myself.
Okay.
When I got married, my mom made all of my bridesmaids dresses.
Oh, how nice.
And they had big poofy sleeves, pink. They were a big full dress with a big bow on the back. And I came home from work and my mom said, Priscilla, I really think these dresses need a crinoline, a full slip underneath them. They would look so much better. And I, for whatever reason, was devastated. Because I thought, I am the bride. I am the only one to wear a slip. Nowadays, the girls don't even wear those slips. But that was like the big poofy dress, And I was crying. I was so upset that the bridesmaids were wearing a big slip. And my mom called all these people and friends that she knew, and she got six slips for the girls to wear. And once I calmed down and saw, I realized she was right, and they did look so much better. And I'm sure, if I had bought it, I would be embarrassed at my pictures now. But I just totally overreacted. It was, at the time, my mom was like, what is going on here? But that's the nature of the beast, so to say, for brides. The emotions are running high. Things that are not that big of a deal all of a sudden get blown way out of proportion. And it's, if you can keep things calm and handle situations, but at the same time, you don't want to go the opposite way and be like, oh, well, who cares?
No big deal.
And, you walk down the aisle with a wet head. So, or you don't have a cake or something like that. So, you want to be organized and have somebody there to help you, whether it's your maid of honor, whether it's your mother, your mother-in-law, whoever it is that can, be a help to you. Make sure you have extra money in your budget for surprises. And then just really try to understand that this is a high emotional time for me, for everybody involved, and make sure I'm not overreacting to whether it's, somebody canceled, they were going to sing a song and now they can't, and who do I find, and my whole wedding is ruined. So keeping those things in check is very helpful.
I always tell brides now, the important thing that will happen on your wedding day is that there is the minister there, and the preacher there to actually do the ceremony. There's the two of you, the bride and the groom, and two witnesses.
Right.
And if you've got that, you can get married.
Get married.
The rest of it is all, it's important, but it's not life or death.
Right.
So whatever else happens, you've got the pastor, you've got you've got your groom, you got two witnesses to make it legal. You're good.
You're good to go. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
But it is important to plan and have a plan of action in place. And so I would just like you to talk for a few minutes about a timeline or scheduling of what to do when. Of course, we've already talked about getting the dress, and but next, what are some of the highlight reel of planning and dates and things like that?
And all of this depends on too how much time you have from being engaged. If you have 4 months, you're gonna squish it down. If you've got 9 months, I was engaged for 9 months, so I had plenty of time, but at the same time I was in college and working a job. So
I should ask you, with your experience now, what is an ideal engagement time?
An ideal, well, some people they get engaged for a year. To me, for many different reasons, I think that's too long. I would say between 9 and 6 months is good.
Yeah, I was 6 months.
I think, once you're engaged, it's like, I just want to get married, and to drag it out past that.
I would probably, 6 months, it was rough. It really was. So I would say, I think you're right, about, maybe 9 months is good.
Right. And it depends on the age.
Maybe 5 years is good.
The older girls that get engaged and married in 4 months, they can handle it.
They can handle it, yeah.
And they're just
like,
let's
I
go.
was doing it, I had a little bit of help, but for the most part of it, and 6 months was quick.
Yeah.
But, I wouldn't change it. But anyway, okay.
Right.
Good to know.
So, and in today's society, too, depending on what you're doing for your reception.
Right.
A lot of those things go over a year.
It's
in
true.
advance.
Yeah.
So If you're having it at the church, you want to make sure your church is available. Our
Right.
church is a little bit different. We have more weddings. We have, conferences going
Right.
on. Some
Big
people
events.
I want to get married on great grandma's anniversary.
Oh.
So you have to see, is that
Right.
available? So you check these main things like that. Is the church available? Is the photographer I want available? And then you think, okay, yes, we're getting married in 6 months. Okay, now I have to find a dress. So are you going to a bridal shop and you're ordering that dress? Because that takes, 4 months to come
Takes a
in.
long time, yeah.
If you're just buying it off the rack, then you've got to think, how much time do I need to have it altered? Things like that. You got to coordinate the florist. You've got to, understand the seasons and what's going on and work through that.
Okay.
But generally, 7 to 9 months before the wedding, you're going to decide, which most girls already know what colors they want, what
Right.
kind of theme. We had a wedding this last summer where it was Christmas in July. So she had Christmas wedding in July. So you know what you want, and you've known since you were little. But you got to figure out your budget. Who's helping with different things? Maybe grandma wants to buy your dress or the cake or something like that. So you're looking for all of that. So you're going to get your church date set, and you're going to get your dress, and you're going to get your bridesmaids dresses. Bridesmaids dresses can be challenging. There's so many things online. A lot of things come from China though, and they'll say, it's going to take 12 weeks to come in. We had a wedding recently, and they had 2 of the dresses did not come in.
Oh.
So they reordered them and had to pay extra, and they came in the night before.
Wow.
We were all praying.
Wow.
So there's things like that.
Wow.
So you want to make sure you give yourself enough time
Stressful.
for that. Yes. And sit down and get your photographer, if you're having a videographer, things like that. Get those set first. 6 months before the wedding, you might be registering for a bridal shower, something like that. Because typically a bridal shower would be anywhere from 2 to 3 months before the wedding. You want to make sure you get your cake and who's doing that, and are you going to a bakery, or are you finding someone that's doing it, out of their home, something like that. Your florist, and then find a good seamstress. We are very fortunate. We have great seamstress here at our church, plus many in the area. But the girls all pretty much go to Angie's Alterations, and she's great. But at the same time, you have to make sure she's not during prom season, she's booked. So you're going to order your invitations. Again, depending on where you get them from, there could be mistakes. You have to have them sent back. We had one bride one time that ordered all her invitations, and she put the wrong place of what do you call it? The auditorium, because we have multiple auditoriums you can use.
Goodness.
So those have to be reordered. So you want to make sure everything is done in enough time so if there is mistakes, you can fix that, and you're not paying extra for overnight shipping, things like that. Plan your honeymoon, get that booked where you want to go, shop around for prices. If you do that sometimes in advance, you can get better deals than if you're last minute saying, I need a week, in Florida, and they're like, okay, well, you're going to pay through the nose for that. 4 months before that, you're going to make sure you have your vocalist, what music you want. It seems like a lot of times girls will wait, especially on that. And then, it's like 3 weeks before the wedding, and I'm like, what songs are you going to have? Oh, well, I don't know yet, and I'm trying to decide between these 2 songs. Things like that need to be thought through.
Right.
Because you really want to have everything done a couple of weeks before the wedding, because there's so many little things that you can't do until the week before, the week of, that the more you can get done. If you're making your own flowers, and they're fake flowers, which is what we did for my daughter's wedding, we had those done a month before the wedding.
Right.
Put them in a garbage bag in the basement, they're ready to go. All we have to do is pull them out. Anything that you can do ahead of time, so that when the wedding day comes and you're running around doing last minute things, you don't have to worry about those big things. They're already done. So 3 months before the wedding, you're buying your little things, your little accessories, your jewelry, your shoes, things like that are not major, but just something small to accessorize your wedding. Little decorations, things that you're making, whether it's an accent wall or swags or something that you're making. That should all be done, at least a month before the wedding. And then the fun part, depending on how much time you have, at least 2 weeks before the wedding, your invitations should be sent out. And so you get to address all those. That is so much fun. I'm just kidding. That's like the worst part of the wedding to me, is writing out all the invitations.
You're at least 2 months, right?
No, they should be in the people's homes at least 2 weeks in advance. If you don't do the save the date, a lot of girls will do save the date like a couple months before the wedding, but not everybody will do that.
Okay.
So they should at least be in their homes. If you're mailing them or handing them out, however you want to do them, they should be mailed out at least 2 weeks before the wedding. And it doesn't hurt to even do it 3 to 4 weeks, because people are busy,
right?
And they like to plan ahead. So those should definitely be sent out, no earlier than a month, because if you go too early, they'll forget.
Yeah, that's true.
So you got to time it right in there.
Okay.
3 to 4 weeks before the wedding, they should definitely.
What if you have not done a save the date? Then how long
you can do something like on Facebook. Even if it's 6 weeks before the wedding, save the date, 6 weeks we're getting married, and then depending again if you're having people RSVP for the reception, those need to be out 4 to 5 weeks before.
Okay.
And then if you're just inviting everybody to the wedding and everybody to the reception, no later than 2 weeks before. And again, just depending on what size church you're at and how many you're having. If it's a casual outside wedding and we only invited 100 people and we know them all, it's not so much pressure.
Right. Okay. It's good to know.
Yes, it is. And then, a couple of things you want to remember is people need to buy their bridesmaids, their groomsmen little gifts, gifts maybe for the parents, small things like that. Again, that's where that little extra reserve of money comes in handy. A lot of times people will forget, I didn't even think about doing something or paying for the people who are singing in my wedding or playing an instrument in my wedding.
Yes, they need to be
nursery workers. As the wedding coordinator at our church, we don't do all of that for everybody in the wedding, but there's a lot of people that I'll take the money from them, and then I make sure I pass it out so they don't even have to worry about that. That's not even a stress on them. And then the day of the wedding, if you don't have a personal attendant, a lot of times the brides will have one, but if they don't have one, if they have a trusted friend or a family member that they can say, here's my envelopes, make sure these people get these thank you cards or whatever it is, and they can get those passed out before the wedding, and then they can go off on their honeymoon and don't have to worry about anything.
No responsibility.
Yes. But make sure, the hotel and the how are you getting to the hotel and how are you getting to the airport and all of that stuff is all worked out. Plenty of time.
If you're going to change before you leave, who's got your dress, all of those things.
All those things have to be worked out, and a lot of times you don't even think about it. And you're like, oh wait, what am I going to do with my dress? Who's going to take your flowers? Who's going to, at my daughter's wedding, we had it all worked out, and then somehow my makeup bag got in her trunk.
Oh no! Whoops.
So for a week and a half, I did not have my makeup. And my husband, for some reason, would not let me go find them and get my makeup out of their car. But I survived. But then you go all the way up through the week of the wedding, making sure those little things are done and all your, make a list. I'm not a list maker, but in situations like this, I am.
Okay.
You have to make a list because, again, there's so many things that you're going to forget. And then the day of the wedding, you just enjoy it. You be in the moment. I tell the bridesmaids, this is what you are for. You are the bridesmaids. You are there to help the bride. You keep her stress-free. Let her have a great day. Let her not be confronted with problems. If someone's late, if something happens. I was in a wedding and a bridesmaid's dress, back then we made them all. And her dress wasn't done. And a lady sitting up in one of the rooms at the church sewing her bridesmaid's dress. The bride never knew.
Wow.
She was happy. She got married, and the bridesmaid walked down the aisle last minute. And we were all in a panic, but the bride didn't know.
Yeah.
So the day of the wedding, you just want to totally enjoy it. And if something goes wrong, okay, well, I guess we're not going to do that.
Right.
And you just go on and you get married. And you
Still
have a
get
great
married.
day.
Yeah.
You really, most of the time, you only get one shot.
Right.
You know, to have the wedding of your dreams, and the wedding of your dreams does not have to be this, you know, $1 million wedding that you see on Pinterest and Instagram.
Right.
But just between
That
you
will
and
only last 6 months.
Yes. So the wedding of your dreams is being present, being in the moment, and making it about you and your husband.
Mm-hmm. Those are all very great. That timeline is so helpful. That's very practical. Regarding rings, how much in advance or how much time do you need to purchase rings? Do you have them sized before? I will tell you that my husband gave me my engagement ring, and it was a little big, so he had that sized. And then once I got it back, I just didn't want to part with that or my wedding band. So my wedding band is half a size bigger than my engagement ring because I just didn't want to let it go. So I'm like, hey, the engagement ring holds it on. I'm good.
There you go. You're good to go.
But how long, if something, you know, if you have something you're designing, I know our daughter-in-law designed a special ring for our son and
Right.
had plenty of time to have that done. But what's the timeline for rings?
Timeline is at least 2 months because you're dealing with a company here who,
Right.
depending on how many people they have employed, especially with COVID right now, everything takes a lot longer. But you want to think ahead. You know, obviously the guy picks out the engagement ring and you know, he brings it to the girl when they get engaged. But then you have wedding bands, you have sizing issues. For the guys, like for our daughter, she found a ring and it was too small, so they had to make it bigger to fit his hand, and then they added like different techniques onto the gold and stuff like that. So that took a little bit longer. Sometimes you need to put these on layaway,
Right.
so you need to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wait too late and then you say, oh, the wedding's next week, but the ring's too small, then how are you going to get that ring, especially
Right.
for a guy? So again, each thing is different. Each time you go to a jewelry store, they have different guidelines and different things. Well, it's definitely going to take us 3 weeks, and then, it took another 2 weeks, it's not going to be ready. So you need to go in and talk to them, find out where you're going to get it, what's your budget, how much you want to spend. If you're going to use somebody, you know, like an antique ring, a family ring, you know, you want that cleaned, you want it fit, you want to make sure there's nothing wrong with it, no damages and things that need to be repaired. A lot of time girls will get their wedding band soldered before the wedding.
Right.
So the day of, they just put it on, and once they're married, they don't have to take it out, you know, and take it off and bring it in, and then now they're married, but they have no ring on,
Which
you know?
is what I did not want to do.
So a lot of girls are doing that, which I think is great,
Mm-hmm.
you know, going ahead of time.
Yeah.
But you really have to know your town, know your jeweler, and plan ahead for anything to go wrong and anything to take twice as long as they say.
Right, right. I want you to show this book that you have made. This is of your daughter's wedding. When we were getting married, the photo albums were big and bulky and really expensive to do, and so this is something now that is so lovely, and you can do it for very inexpensive, and you can create your own timeline of photos. You can create your own collages of photos. This is just lovely. And I mean, as a bride even, this is something that any bride would love to have this for her wedding.
Right. And what was nice about this is my daughter's photographer, she got one of these books as part of her package.
Wow.
And when she got it in, I was just, like you said, I was just stunned because our wedding book is huge, and you can only have this 8x10, and you know, you can't have all the pictures that you want.
Right.
And so when I saw hers, I thought, okay, I want my own, because hers had more bridesmaids and different things like that.
Photos.
I am the mom. I want family and things that mean a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on Groupon. You buy a Groupon for all the different Shutterfly, and there's so many different companies that you get. So I got a Groupon, got a really good deal, and then she helped me put this book together, and I got to pick out all the pictures that meant a lot to me and that were important to me. And we made this book, and the nice thing is like for me, this would be more my family side of it, but for the mother of the groom, it would be more her family side, or the grandparents, or things like that. And they don't cost a lot of money. So my daughter has one that is professionally done, and mine has some mistakes, but I got to pick out the pictures that I love the most.
So beautiful.
You know, and then we end with farewell.
Aww.
But it's today's world is so much easier, and you can do things so much cheaper, with better quality sometimes, more economical, and do things that you want and personalize things without, you know, going out there and spending a fortune. Which is really nice.
I've always said that weddings and funerals just bring out the worst in people, and I wish that wasn't true. I wish every family found a way to rally and support and love and encourage. But it does seem that with big life events, sometimes people bring their expectations, their baggage, their issues into the circumstance. I've seen many mothers jealous over their bride daughters, which is so ridiculous. How do you help brides when they're planning, just trying to have, you know, the day for them, their groom, you know, to celebrate the day they've chosen to become man and wife? How do you help them guide through not just their emotions and opinions, but other people who have things that they want to interject? Even if you want to address things that happen at the rehearsal or up to the day, what are some things that you do to help a bride rein all of that in?
Well, like you said, a lot of times the moms want to either relive their wedding, or this is the wedding I never had, or this is what I pictured for you. And you have not just the mother of the bride, but you also have the mother of the groom, and you don't want her to feel left out or neglected. And then you've got friends, you've got sisters, you've got grandparents that like to give their opinions. Or if somebody says, "Hey, I'll pay for this, you know, cake, or I'll pay for this situation," but you know, they feel like since they paid for it, they're entitled to give their opinions too. So you have a lot of that, which could just really overwhelm somebody and stress them out and just, you know, ruin the whole experience for them. So on one hand, you want to block that out and learn how to deal with that. On the other hand, you also want to keep in mind, this is your mom, and this is your mother-in-law, and this is your, you know, your grandparents and your friends and your family. So you got to balance it all and understand, you know, when I'm at a rehearsal and I'm looking at the bride and the groom, and they're sitting there and they've got all their friends, and then behind them is, you know, the mom, the dad, the grandma, and the grandpa. And I realize, you know, as much as it is about them, it's about all these people they have put into them. And so to the mom and dad, to the grandma and grandpa, seeing these two people get married is not just a fun day. To the friends, it's a fun day. So you want to balance that with mom. You know, I understand this is your opinion and this is what you think is beautiful, but this is my day, and I really feel strongly I want my girls to wear this color. At the same time, if it's something you can bend and do for her to make her feel special, like, okay, my mom thinks I should have this flower in my bouquet, and I don't like this flower, but is it something that you can just add in there, and she feels like, oh, my daughter cares about me, and this is a piece of me, and you know. So you have to not just say, no, it's my way, my day, I want everything done the way I want it done because this is my one shot. You have to be willing to say, what, you know, to yourself, what can I do to make her happy? How can I include her and make her feel special? How can I include my mother-in-law? When we got married, I had a song from each of their weddings sung in our wedding.
So nice.
You know, I know when Rebecca and Joey got married, she had my mother's dress, and she had so many different sentimental things added into it. And that just brings the whole family together rather than saying, this is the way I want it, this is what I've always wanted, I want this dress, I want this, you know, I want my hair like this, and your mom's saying, but dear, I know your hair looks so much better this way, and you're fighting over your hairstyle. So as much as you say, okay, mom, you know, when to say when, but at the same time be able to be flexible and hear her out, hear her opinion. So if you struggle with that, I would say go to somebody and say, help.
Right.
What's the right piece of advice? How do I handle this? Because a lot of times you will have a family member that's overbearing.
Right.
And just controls the whole situation, and the bride and groom say, well, I'm just going to run off and elope. It's not worth all of this.
Right.
And you don't want to steal that from them either. But if you are in a situation where you've got somebody overstepping their bounds, then if you don't know how to handle it, go to somebody, your pastor's wife, someone that you trust, and you're not just your friends, because your friends, your peers are looking at it from a different angle.
Right.
They're going to say, well, you just tell her.
Right.
And you want to be careful, because the wedding day, it doesn't end with that. You wake up the next day.
Right.
You come home from your honeymoon, and your mom's still your mom. Your mother-in-law is now your mother-in-law, and you don't want to damage and hurt relationships over one day.
Right. That's true. It's true. You want to, people used to say, I remember hearing a lot when I was younger, you marry the family. And I don't know that I agree with that statement 100%, but you do marry into a system of thinking, and your holidays are with these people. And, and you don't want everybody to look back on your wedding day as a lightning rod.
Right.
You want it to have been a blending of love and emotion and family ties.
Right.
And so I think that's a very sensible thing. Just if you struggle in that area, get some reinforcements.
Yes. Get some reinforcements for sure.
The verse that my husband and I took for beginning our life together was Ecclesiastes 3:14. It says, I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth it, that men should fear before him. Marriage is supposed to be a forever bond, but when you are planning a wedding, so many times it's just the wedding, the dress, and I remember saying to a bride when I was very young, I was just listening to her talk about this dress and these flowers, and I remember just saying, is there a groom in there somewhere? You're not marrying your dress. Right. And I was young, and and I should have just let her speak instead of voicing my opinion. But now I've learned through the years, obviously brides get excited about their day, but I do find a trend, especially today, of young women who don't realize there's a marriage coming. Yes, you can prepare for the wedding, and you can look so beautiful and look, the most beautiful that you've ever looked before, and leave the church and think, now what? And the now what is so much more important than the year before that you've spent planning. But it's so hard to get young women to see that. What is some advice that you could give for brides that are interested in the wife aspect? They're going to leave behind that wedding dress, and they're going to enter everyday life, and they've got to prepare for that. So what are some things you would tell a young wife or a young bride who's about to become a young wife?
Well, one thing that our church does that I just love is they are required to go to at least 4 classes of premarital counseling.
So important.
Which is huge, because you can read a book, and books are great. I've read lots of marriage books, but to hear somebody teaching that's been there, done that in person, while you're sitting there with your fiance, really it's so much better than just sitting at home by yourself reading a book. Because a lot of times we read a book, we think, oh yeah, I hope he's like that, or I'm going to be the other way, or I'm not going to need that. But hearing that advice, and if meeting with your pastor, meeting with your mom, meeting with your grandma, give me some advice. Before my grandma passed away, last time I saw her, I said, Grandma, tell us some marriage advice. Every woman will give you marriage advice. Right. and write it down and learn it. Another thing that I thought was just very powerful is our pastor's daughter got married this summer, and he was talking in church afterwards, and he said, I told my daughter, this day is about you, this day is about getting married, and you're the bride. But he said, after you come back from your wedding, I hope you're a better wife than you were a bride. Because we put so much into that day.
Right.
Walking down the aisle, everybody's looking at me. I'm glowing, I'm beautiful, I'm everything I've ever dreamed of being. And then you come home and you're mean and you're nasty and you're complaining and you're crying and it's like, where's this beautiful, girl that I married? So understanding that and keeping that in perspective of this is one day. That's when we were planning my daughter's wedding, my husband would say, just remember this is just one day. And it's like, yes. And then afterwards you come home. So how can we be a better wife than we were a bride? And that's the story of our Christian life.
Right.
We are the bride of Christ, but how can we be better relationship wise with the Lord than we are just in our performance and our works that we do.
Right.
We are to serve Him, we are to work for the Lord, give our lives to Him, but what's more important? Sacrifice or that relationship that we have with God.
Right.
And trying to keep that in perspective to a young girl, if she doesn't have someone older kind of saying, okay, look over here, focus on this, don't forget about that. It's kind of like having a baby. You buy all the stuff for the baby, but do you have any clue how to raise a baby? Right. But I think getting marriage counseling, if it's not a requirement from your church, talking to your fiance, saying, hey, is this something that you would be interested in doing, and we can set this up with our pastor or somebody that you trust and get several weeks of marriage advice. Is huge and such a help, because things will come back to you in your first first tiff, your first situation that's stressful as a married couple. Having something there to pull out, say, oh yes, brother so and so said when something like this happens, this is how I should handle it. But I think it's just that little bit of maturity of saying, it's not just about this day, it's about our life forever. And what kind of wife am I going to be? What kind of person, what kind of woman am I going to be? Not just what do I look like on my wedding day. Yeah.
And of course it starts with making sure you have the right one.
Right.
And it's not just, I'm not ever going to find anybody else. That's not a reason to be married. No. It's being convinced that this is the guy for you. And that's where it starts. And I've prayed for, we have 2 children now that are married, and one is dating, Jacob Duff.
Somebody that I happen to like.
But for each of our kids that are married, and I mean, we told them, we've told all of our kids, we will pray for God's will and who you marry until you are walking down that aisle and saying, I do, because, I've known a lot of people to go through with the wedding that weren't comfortable. Right. They knew in their hearts it wasn't right, but because everything had been planned, the money had been spent, they went ahead and went through with it. Right. And you've got to be convinced. You have to be convinced. You have to know that you are saved, that you have the guy. And so I think this advice has been so practical and wonderful, and of course not the end-all be-all of wedding planning, but but when it comes time for a young lady to be engaged and start planning, this will be a great resource. And so I appreciate you giving your time. I appreciate you opening up your lovely home and your lovely person. And thank you so much for the advice you've given.
Thank you for having me and listening to my ramblings and and maybe check back in a few more years. I'll have more advice.
I will. I'll be checking back in.
Because I'll have more experience doing all of this.
Well, this was great and a help, and I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye.